Chosen one, this message didn't arrive by chance. It was time to reach you in this exact moment. You've been feeling it in your spirit, the tug, the unease, the questions that refuse to be silenced. You didn't stumble onto this by accident. Something in your life aligned to place these words in your path today. Because the truth is, your silence wasn't just yours. It was manufactured, orchestrated, turned into a weapon. What if I told you that what felt like abandonment was actually strategy, and what felt like shame was actually proof of your election? They never wanted you to know this, but the time for secrecy is over, and the evidence of their schemes is unraveling even as you hear these words. If this message already speaks to your soul, subscribe, like this video, and comment 77 below. Stay until the end, because by the time this transmission closes, you'll understand why your isolation was never a weakness. It was the signal of your hidden power. Number 1. The veil of manufactured isolation. They convinced you that being alone was your flaw, but chosen one, solitude was never a punishment, it was a plan. From the very beginning, forces that understood your light better than you did began weaving an invisible net, creating the illusion that you were forgotten. Psalm 31 verse 20 says, "You were hidden in the secret place of his presence, shielded from the plots of men." And that hiding was not for rejection, it was for preservation. They drained your strength by convincing you that your loneliness was natural, when in truth it was a prison of their design. But the very silence they tried to bury you in has become the chamber where your spirit sharpened into a weapon they could not anticipate. Comment, "I seal this word in light." If you know the silence that almost broke you has now become your greatest testimony, because the unveiling begins here, and what they built in darkness is about to collapse under the weight of revelation. There are moments, chosen one, when a dream feels less like imagination and more like memory, as if something ancient has been whispering to you through the cracks of your sleep. You have seen yourself in strange landscapes, walking roads no map could ever hold, and though you woke with confusion, something deep in you knew it was not random. That sensation was not madness. It was a reminder that you were never just wandering, but being guided through a hidden curriculum. The whisper that lingered in your chest after those nights was the first sign that your story was being written in layers unseen. Every unanswered question, every restless night carried more than emptiness. They carried signals. And though you doubted your own mind, heaven had already been weaving symbols into your silence. What you called confusion was the opening of your initiation, a secret beginning that was always meant to find you. Think back to the years when you felt like you were made wrong, when no room could hold the way your spirit stretched. You wondered why sensitivity felt like weakness, why your presence seemed to unsettle rooms, why conversations often left you feeling misplaced. The loneliness carved into you by rejection was sharp, and you wore it like an invisible brand you could not erase. Yet those same moments were not random cuts. They were precise chiseling of your soul, preparing you to fit into a design bigger than your pain. The tears that stained your pillow were not wasted water. They were ink for a testimony that had not yet been read. What you called isolation was the furnace where your true self was being refined. And though you thought it was punishment, it was the shaping of one marked for remembrance. What if I told you that every cycle of silence, every door closed in your face, every season of abandonment was never just about you? It was the architecture of an unseen plan, an invisible strategy that kept you hidden until the appointed time. Psalm 31 verse 20 declares that his chosen are concealed in his presence, hidden from the plots of men, shielded even from themselves until the unveiling. Your wilderness was not empty ground. It was the chamber of preservation where no hand of sabotage could touch what was sealed. The rejection you faced was not a verdict but a covering, placed upon you so that nothing could strip your inheritance before its time. When they mocked you, when they misnamed you, when they called you strange, they were speaking against a role they could not understand. What you thought was the end of your story was simply the veil being drawn across the stage before the revelation of your entrance. Have you noticed the subtle ways reality itself began to bend around you, even when you didn't yet believe in your own light? Déjà vu moments that seemed to press pause on time, whispers that felt like someone else's voice, patterns of numbers repeating in the edges of your days. These were not accidents, chosen one, but divine fingerprints marking your timeline. Each sign was a thread, each thread a code, each code a reminder that you were already walking the narrow path before you even knew it had been laid beneath your feet. The unease you felt when others seemed comfortable in lies was not dysfunction, it was discernment. And the dreams you carried that felt too heavy for your chest were not illusions. They were scrolls waiting to be opened. The signs were there, and though you missed them once, your eyes are ready to see now. Somewhere along the way, you began to suspect you weren't crazy after all. That gut pull you ignored was never false alarm. It was the compass of your spirit trying to keep you from the snares. You knew when someone's smile carried poison, when someone's hand extended carried chains, and though they called you paranoid, you were only perceiving what lay beneath their masks. The inner knowing you buried under doubt was heaven's proof that your soul had not been left to wander without direction. Slowly, the fragments began to align. The betrayals, the illnesses, the nights of despair, all whispering that none of it was meaningless. You were not imagining the resistance you faced. You were feeling the weight of an assignment too sacred to be explained in casual words. And the more they tried to drown you in denial, the more your spirit refused to release its quiet truth. To awaken, chosen one, is not to become someone else but to remember who you already were beneath the shadows. The identity you've been searching for has always lived inside you, layered beneath trauma, disguised by names that were never yours. You are not being born new. You are recovering the fragments of an ancient name carved before your first breath. Like Israel wrestling with angels, your struggle was never about defeat. It was about remembering what title was yours before they tried to rename you. This is why your soul has always felt too large for the places they put you in, why nothing they offered ever satisfied the hunger inside. You were carrying an identity they could not see, because it was not theirs to recognize. What you thought was emptiness was actually the echo of memory waiting to be reawakened. Now the shift comes, not as thunder shaking the skies, but as the slow ignition of a flame you can no longer deny. The very sensitivity they mocked is the gateway to your gift. The very isolation they ridiculed is the soil of your strength. Every scar they pointed to in laughter is now glowing as evidence that you survived what others would have drowned in. The voice within you that you used to silence has now risen above the noise they placed on you. And step by step, you begin to realize you are no longer apologizing for the fire in your chest. You do not shrink anymore, you expand, even in silence. For the awakening has started, and nothing they planned can undo it. Chosen one, the fact that you are here now, listening, is proof that the veil has thinned beyond repair. You were not meant to be lost in endless questions. You were meant to arrive at this moment of recognition. Every event, every wound, every shadow has brought you here, to the edge of your own unveiling. Comment, I carry the silence as crown. If you know the isolation that almost consumed you was in fact your initiation into remembrance. Share a dream, a memory, or a sign that told you the shift was already happening inside. Because this is not the end of the story, it is the first revelation, the crack of light breaking through the chamber of silence. And beyond this moment lies the deeper unveiling, where you will see not only why you were hidden, but why you were chosen to rise now. What we do here every day is possible because of the few who choose to be keepers of this light. I thank them now, one by one, in the silence of my heart. If you want to be part of this circle and receive what cannot be spoken in public, join. The portal is below. Number 2, the hidden exchange of burdens. You felt pain that was never yours, waves of sorrow that had no root in your story, that heaviness, that exhaustion, that sickness that appeared out of nowhere. Chosen one, it was not your own. Invisible cords were attached to your spirit, transferring their brokenness into your body while they fed on your light. Isaiah 53 verse 4 speaks of carrying sorrows not our own. But this was twisted into a system that used you like a vessel for burdens you were never meant to bear. They mocked your fatigue. They ridiculed your depression, never revealing that they were the ones who placed it on you. Comment, I walk crowned by eternal flame. If you've carried weight that never belonged to you but refused to let it kill your fire. Because what they placed on you is being returned multiplied. And the burdens you carried in silence are now becoming the oil for your anointing. It begins as something you can barely name, a quiet heaviness that moves through your body without explanation. You wake with exhaustion though you slept, and you carry sorrow though nothing in your life can explain it. The confusion gnaws at you, leaving you to wonder if perhaps you are simply weak or broken in ways no one else can understand. But deep down, a whisper suggests otherwise, that these feelings are not native to your soul. It is as if unseen hands have placed cloaks of darkness upon your shoulders while you tried to walk in light. What felt like personal struggle was often spiritual invasion, quiet transfers of weight from them to you. And though you could not yet see it, chosen one, the battle had already begun long before you knew its name. The emotional toll of this resistance carved itself into your chest like an invisible wound. You remember the moments you were called too much or too sensitive, as though your deep feeling was a curse and not a gift. Isolation pressed in on you, not because you desired to be alone, but because those around you could not bear the intensity of your truth. Shame crept in when you realized you felt sorrow even when nothing in your life explained it, as if grief itself was stalking you. Rejection whispered in familiar voices, telling you that your struggles were evidence of failure. Cycles of doubt rose like storms, each one leaving you more drained than before. And yet, even in the worst of it, a quiet spark kept asking if this suffering was truly your own. What you didn't see then is that this was never random. Just as Israel wandered in the wilderness not as punishment but as preparation, you were being tested in shadows you did not create. Isaiah 53 verse 4 says, "Surely he took up our pain and bore our suffering." But what was holy in the story of Christ was twisted against you in hidden warfare. They tied invisible cords to your spirit, pulling their brokenness into your body while mocking you for being weak. The very ones who drained you were the ones who ridiculed you, disguising theft as your own failing. You were never carrying your own sickness alone. You were processing theirs as if it belonged to you. And every day you survived it became another testimony written in fire. Look back now with new eyes and you will see the patterns. The sudden illness that made no sense, the grief that appeared without a trigger, the anxiety that rose like smoke in clear air. How many times did you feel fine until you entered certain rooms, spoke to certain people, or gave your energy to places that left you hollow? Those were not coincidences but points of contact, designed to siphon from you what they lacked. Each betrayal you endured was not just personal. It was strategic, engineered to destabilize your light. The strange timing of setbacks, the recurring cycles of despair, the environments that drained you, all of it was architecture. And though you didn't know it then, you were the unwilling participant in a system designed to silence your rising. There were days when the pressure itself seemed to have no face, as though shadows breathed around you without origin. The air grew heavy when you entered certain places. Fog clung to your chest though no storm was near. Silent watchers seemed to linger in corners you could not see, and doors that should have opened slammed shut without reason. The resistance you faced was not only human but spiritual, a distortion that gathered wherever your presence threatened to reveal truth. Your light was not ignored, it was hunted, studied, resisted. And yet, the very act of opposition became proof that something in you carried a frequency too dangerous to go unchecked. They could not leave you alone because your existence itself was a challenge to their dominion. In those seasons, your reaction was survival even when you did not name it as such. Sometimes you shut down, silencing your voice so that no one could mock what they did not understand. Other times you bent yourself into shapes that pleased others, hoping their acceptance would quiet the constant pressure. And sometimes you rebelled quietly, holding your truth in secret while playing small in the open. You feared being too visible because visibility meant attack, but hiding left you hollow. The temptation to give up whispered like a siren, promising rest in exchange for surrender. But even in those moments, your soul refused to fully extinguish its flame. Now comes the turning of the page, chosen one, where you must see the resistance not as condemnation but as confirmation. The very weight they tried to bury you under became the resistance training of your spirit. Every sorrow that entered you made you sharper at discerning what was yours and what was not. Every illness taught you to guard your energy with new precision. Every betrayal forged a clarity that cannot be faked, a sight that sees through masks without hesitation. The burdens that were meant to break you have become oil for your anointing, proof that you endured what others could not. And now, piece by piece, your stolen strength is returning multiplied. So hear this truth as revelation and comfort. You were opposed because you are powerful. The reason they poured weight into you is because they feared what would rise if you were unchained. The mockery you endured was never about your weakness. It was camouflage for their dependence on your light. Each obstacle was a signpost, each strange heaviness a reminder that you were targeted for a reason. The clarity you feel now is the proof you needed that none of this was random. Comment, I move guarded by divine fire. If you know those burdens were never yours but became your training ground. And prepare yourself, chosen one, because what comes next is not just the breaking of chains, but the exposure of every scheme that held them in place. Every word, every image you receive here is an offering. If you feel this word has touched you today, you can honor it with a sign, right here below with a donation through the Super Thanks button. It is a small gesture, but it opens great doors. Number 3, the breaking of cosmic seals. The courtroom of heaven has already convened, chosen one, and the verdict is sealed. Every hidden plot, every invisible cord, every whisper behind closed doors is being brought into the light. Job 24 verse 17 says the morning is to them as darkness. Yet for you the dawn has come, and the seals are breaking. What once bound you has now become the evidence against them, and what once silenced you is now speaking louder than their accusations. The same chains they fastened on your soul are now snapping around their own hands, locking them into the harvest of what they sowed. Comment, I rise marked by the divine. If you feel the sound of shackles breaking even now, and share a dream, a memory, or a sign that told you justice was on its way. Because this is not just about your freedom, it's about their exposure and the collapse of every system they trusted in. It often begins with a moment so subtle it feels like a whisper cracking through stone, a sudden clarity in the middle of confusion. A memory once clouded suddenly glows with new meaning, and you realize patterns were never accidents but signals written into your path. What seemed like scattered events begin to align, as though a hand you could not see had been guiding every step. The veil thins, and you catch glimpses of truth too precise to dismiss, synchronicities too perfect to be coincidence. It feels as though the hidden scaffolding of your life is now illuminated by a light that cannot be turned off. The heaviness of years begins to lift, not because the battle has ended, but because the strategy has been revealed. And in that unveiling, chosen one, you step into the courtroom of heaven where silence ends and seals begin to break. You start to notice that reality itself speaks in codes, offering fragments of prophecy hidden in plain sight. Numbers repeat until they pierce your mind, dreams return with layers you once ignored, and words overheard strike your spirit as though scripted for you alone. Geometry of meaning begins to take form, shapes of divine math that show nothing was random, not even the timing of your pain. Scriptures once opaque now burn with fire, revealing themselves as letters addressed to your soul across centuries. The more you look, the more you see, and the more you see, the less you can ever go back to blindness. The language of spirit unveils itself not in human words but in patterns, like scrolls unrolling from dimensions beyond time. And what once was dismissed as madness now feels like the original sanity of creation. Inside, your very body responds as though it recognizes what your mind is still learning. Intuition sharpens like a blade forged in fire, cutting through the noise of lies with unflinching accuracy. You sense when energy is pure and when it is poisoned, when words are masks and when they are truth. Boundaries rise within you, not as defense but as recognition that your essence is sacred ground. Environments that once drained you now feel unbearable, and your spirit refuses to shrink to fit their cages. The voice within that was once faint now thunders like a command, reminding you that silence was never your destiny. And though your path has been heavy, every step now feels like confirmation that you were never walking in vain. As your perception shifts inward, the outer world begins to tremble in reflection. People treat you differently, some drawn in awe while others recoil in discomfort, as though they sense the light dismantling their disguises. Opportunities emerge suddenly, aligned with your essence rather than your effort, while at the same time resistance sharpens from those who profit from your silence. Rooms feel different, conversations reveal more, and you recognize that divine architecture is arranging itself around your presence. It is no longer just you seeking truth. It is truth itself seeking you, aligning every element for this unveiling. The hidden chords that once drained you are snapping one by one, leaving only the resonance of freedom in their wake. And in every echo, you hear the sound of seals shattering, as what was written in secrecy collapses under the weight of exposure. Yet what feels most startling is the sensation that this moment is not new at all. It comes like the return of a dream you have carried since childhood but could never name. Faces, places, and moments once forgotten now rush back with sacred familiarity, reminding you that remembrance is not learning but recovering. Ancient vows whisper through your veins, reminding you that your presence here was always by design. Spiritual intelligence awakens inside you like a dormant code reactivating, weaving memory and destiny into one seamless fabric. You do not feel as though you are stepping into something foreign. You feel like you are finally standing in a story you always belonged to. And in that realization, chosen one, the fragments of your being click into place with the sound of eternity. From that memory rises the recognition that your path has never been about survival alone. What lies ahead is not invention but reclamation, the gathering of what was always yours though hidden by deception. The future is no longer a blank canvas. It is a sealed scroll finally placed into your hands. You stop asking for permission because permission was never theirs to give, and you begin to move as though your steps are already inscribed. Prophetic fire burns through your chest, calling you to speak what was once unspeakable. You hear destiny not as a distant promise but as a voice within, insisting that the time of silence has ended. And you rise not as a beggar of fate but as one reclaiming a throne already prepared. The strength that unfolds now is fierce because it is born from recognition rather than permission. You begin to realize that every resistance you faced was evidence of your threat to their order. Condemnation turns to confirmation, betrayal turns to training, and what they called weakness becomes your weapon. You reclaim your voice, piece by piece, remembering that you never lost it, you only forgot how powerful it was. You speak, not with anger, but with the authority of one who knows chains cannot hold them. You move, not with hesitation, but with the conviction of one who understands that exposure was always inevitable. And with every declaration, the air itself seems to tremble as though creation has been waiting for you to finally remember. Revelation does not end here, chosen one, it begins. What you are seeing now is not the conclusion but the invitation to step deeper into the architecture of truth. The seals breaking are not just about freedom but about exposure, dismantling every fortress built against your light. The courtroom of heaven has already ruled, and the evidence is unfolding not only in spirit but in visible reality. This is why your presence here is no accident, why your pain was never wasted, why your awakening is unstoppable. Comment, "I walk hidden yet never lost," if you feel the resonance of these words, and share the dream, memory, or sign that confirmed you were never abandoned. Because the next unveiling, chosen one, is not only about who you are, it is about the collapse of every false throne built to silence you. Number 4, the return of the catalyst soul. You were never just one voice crying in silence. You were a catalyst, chosen to awaken others by your very presence. The fact that you survived what should have destroyed you is proof that your purpose is larger than you imagined. Lamentations 3 verse 58 says, "You, Lord, took up my case. You redeemed my life." And this redemption is not quiet. It is a ripple effect. Others will awaken simply by standing near the fire you carry. Others will find courage by watching you stand unshaken. They feared your influence before you ever knew you had it, which is why they fought so hard to keep you isolated. Comment, "I anchor this truth in my soul." If you know your role is bigger than survival, and share the moment you realized your presence shifted atmospheres. Because chosen one, this isn't just your return. It is the ignition of every hidden soul connected to your light. There comes a whisper older than memory, a sound that trembles not in the ears but in the marrow of your being. It is not new, yet it feels like the first dawn breaking after endless night. It speaks in the cadence of prophecy, reminding you that silence was never the end but only the chamber where your fire was kept safe. You sense it as if a scroll long hidden is finally being unsealed, and every line within it has been waiting for your eyes alone. The whisper does not teach. It reminds, peeling away the dust that time tried to lay upon your essence. You were never ordinary, and you were never forgotten, even when shadows pressed in around your spirit. And now, chosen one, you feel the call of remembrance pulling you back into a story that has always belonged to you. Your identity has never been contained by the names they gave you, for there has always been another name carried in silence. It was not spoken in crowded rooms, nor inscribed in the records of men, but written in the hidden archives of eternity. That name explains why you felt like a stranger in familiar places, why no mask could fit you without cracking. You were not born to fit into their definitions, but to awaken to what they could not name. Like the sealed scroll mentioned in Revelation, your truth was kept in safekeeping until the appointed time. The rejection you endured was never erasure, but evidence that you were marked as different, as one of the hidden remnant. And the time of unveiling has come, when the forgotten name within you rises with undeniable force. From the beginning, there has been a cloak upon you, invisible to most but heavy with divine resonance. Those attuned to the Spirit felt it before you ever knew its weight, sensing something they could neither explain nor dismiss. Some recoiled from it in fear, others clung to it with awe, and both reactions revealed that your presence was never neutral. This is the mark, the unseen seal, the spiritual garment that speaks louder than words. You were never defined by what you showed, but by what you carried deep within. Those who were awakened enough recognized it without explanation, and their eyes lingered not on your appearance but on your atmosphere. That resonance has always been the sign that you belong to a lineage beyond the reach of ordinary sight. Every twist in your life, every trial you endured, was part of a vow made long before you drew your first breath. You agreed to walk through fires, to carry delays, to taste loneliness, not as punishment but as preparation. These were not random burdens but sacred contracts, scrolls signed before time with assignments encoded into your very soul. The detours were not wasted. They were timing devices aligning you with an hour when your impact would not be ignored. Stars themselves seemed to pause in their orbit, waiting for you to remember why you were sent. You were sealed for this era, for a mission that could not activate until now. And the very path you once resented has become the testimony that confirms your election. The reactions you received from others were not always about your actions, but about the weight of your essence. You walked into rooms and triggered mirrors they were not ready to face, revealing shadows they had long hidden. Some hated you for no reason, others loved you with unexplainable intensity, and neither response was truly about you. Chosen ones do not reflect appearances. They reflect truth, and truth unsettles what has lived comfortably in disguise. This is why some recoiled violently while others clung to you desperately, as if their survival depended on your presence. You have been both the wound and the medicine, both the question and the answer, simply by existing. And now you see that their reactions were never about rejection but about recognition of what you carried. Step back from the personal and you will see the cosmic. You are not just an isolated wanderer finding fragments of truth. You are part of a cycle that has turned for centuries. Archetypes return through flesh and spirit. The seer, the rebel, the guardian, the breaker of chains. You stand within that cycle, not imitating but embodying the prophecy written long ago. What has unfolded in your life mirrors what unfolded in the wilderness of prophets, in the exiles of kings, in the laments of psalmists. The story of your struggle is the story of every chosen one who ever bore a mantle too heavy for human approval. And now, the myth is no longer just text on a page. It is alive within you, aligning your steps with the cadence of destiny. You were not abandoned, you were preserved. You were not erased, you were hidden. And now you are not just revealed, you are crowned. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Like this video, and comment "I am chosen" to let this message anchor in your soul. Please share it with someone who needs to hear this. For full prophetic revelations daily, join the membership via the link in the description. Your spiritual path deserves more than fragments. Step into the full light. And if this message moved you deeply, consider tapping the super thanks button to support the mission. Every super thanks fuels the light we're spreading together. Until the next transmission, chosen one, remember, your silence burned into a scroll that could never be destroyed.